Now, we got nicknames now. Like, did we finally make it? We made it.
We're part of the circle.
Yay!
We're part of a team.
Because you know you're tight with someone when they got nicknames for you. But we're also tight with these teams. Paris Eternal versus Washington Justice. Even though Danny said he hoped Paris didn't win, I can't say anything of that sort. Because Paris is coming to my city next year, and they will find me. So I have to be non-biased for my own security.
Yeah, but biases right now are a little bit weird, as it feels like when it comes to predictions and pick'ems, we're all going through a collective Joker moment of we've just embraced the great equalizer, as Custer called it. We're in anarchy mode at the moment. But it's not just a question of anarchy, but also a question of bravery as to if you've predicted the Paris Eternal, because their season thus far has not been great. And yesterday, Washington Justice did pretty well against the San Francisco Shock. They're probably 1 or 2 fights away from winning the entire thing. Let's have a look at the Paris Eternal Lemon. I'm looking straight up at Wub here as we move on in. We've seen already how much a good Genji can bring to the table for a team. And Wub basically was picked up mostly for his Genji, replacing Naga, who Paris Eternal started the year with.
Yeah, I think Genji is what Wub was most known for, one of his best heroes at the very least. One other thing that sticks out is Vestola playing instead of Dawn. I always have to be like, Dawn, because I used to say Dan. You got mad at me before. It's kind of like a yawn, but what's not a yawn is Vestola, so I'm kind of thinking this is like a Dallas Fuel situation where you have your off tanks coming in to specialize in the Junker Queen, whether they just didn't have anything else to do and now Dawn can, or, you know, Fearless, for that example, can focus on their main tanks. But we even had this discussion about how Zarya players, will they have probably better raw mechanics, and overall the play style of that Zarya and how she synergizes and enables the rest of her team probably is very similar to how you would play Junker Queen. So it worked out for Dallas Fuel, who won their first match. Now in Paris's first match, you start off on a fresh foot. 0-0, one of Paris's best records, so you can only go up from here.
I don't need any hopium to think about the tank line of a Washington Justice, because one man is all that they need. Mag yesterday was lights out on the Junker Queen. When it comes to this meta, it really feels like Mag has once again found his stride. Admittedly, it's not been the most inspiring run for Mag in the Overwatch League across the seasons that he's been here so far. Came in as a much-hyped rookie from notable talent farm that he's run away with multiple contenders career titles under his belt, but it never really translated to the results on Washington Justice. This could be the stage of. They came so close to defeating the San Francisco Shock. Unfortunately, it came down to a decision of Happy's Blade, or rather Decay's Blade, being at the wrong place in the wrong time that kind of sent a death spiral happening in the last map of Oasis, and Happy popped an overclock that just could not connect the shots. So what I'm looking for is consistency, not only in mechanics, but also in decision making from the more rogue elements in the damage line of a Washington Justice.
And that decision-making is what the desk had highlighted in yesterday's match, where we were all just surprised that Washington Justice were up 2-0. Like, we kind of just woke up from a coma and we're like, what is happening? Are Shock gonna lose to the Justice? Wake me up now. But, you know, they got reverse swept. It is what it is. It is, you guys did sign up to be Justice fans after all. But I'm excited, especially because in the flanker-heavy meta, it was always the Decay show. But now that I feel like Sojourn has a very important role at kicking off fights, I'm looking at Happy. And I think I have to highlight Happy because he's going up against Dove from the Paris Eternal on that Sojourn, Ashe, whatever they end up picking. And I would much lean towards the Washington Justice having just more experience and better mechanics because, of course, Dove is still a rookie.
Yeah, Dove, a much fresher pickup. We have seen North American contenders hit scans pop off recently, though. Yesterday, Aspire, even though he had his time on the Toronto Defiant last year, was absolutely dominating the lobby on the Sojourn, and Dove's going to be hoping to try and emulate that performance. Washington Justice in particular, one of the things I really want you to look for in the audience is how much they like to focus the main tank as the target of their initial aggression on control rounds, because they realize that often these Junker Queens will use their shout in order to try and negotiate a better position for their team as a whole, because that's so important on control. But in this particular case, it can be exploited by a Washington Justice who just want to get all over the Junker Queen and remove her as quickly as possible. And one of the best ways to do that is to hit a knife and then pull the Junker Queen into a disruptor shot from the Sojourn, so her disengage is super weak.
Yeah, a lot more teams opting to just put the focus into the Junker Queen instead of the Brigida to kind of summarize all that. And we kind of saw even yesterday or the day before how Gladiators' Reiner just was always dying. And that's the type of focus fire you need as we head over into Busan downtown. Washington Justice have Happy over on the staircase. Paris going for Mega Pack control, and it's a scuffle. But look at that massive dynamite damage from Dove, already at 30%. He got Justice low. Wub dashed in to maybe finish off some kills, but Justice had time to heal back up and strike back even harder. That's multiple headshots from the Justice when it felt like Paris had the initial better positioning and better damage.
Vestola, they're taking a lot of damage early, had some knock-on consequences where Vestola has to disengage a little bit, maybe try and find a more risky Carnage to get a touch more drain from those bleeds, and that leaves Dove without too much cover that you really need as an Ashe, a little bit of space to work with, because your escapability isn't quite as precise as the slide of a Sojourn.
So with that first cap, Justice trying to cut off Paris' rotations to Mega Pack room and not getting punished yet. Paris might have relieved some pressure. They had Dredro kind of leading that way, but they spotted Mag low, and Paris immediately reacted to the situation. Dove tried to get pressured by Lucio, but that's not a problem for someone like him, and they're going to use the shout to rotate the point and flip it back over at about 30% for the Justice.
All right, I've got one number for you to look at, and that is Wub's ult charge. He has been finding these targets and landing the right clicks you need to soften up targets. You really need to hit some effective right clicks as Genji in this meta to overwhelm the raw aura healing that everybody's getting from the Inspire and from the Lucio, because if you don't deal a huge amount of damage at once, it will easily be wiped off a slate.
Man, that's some quick speed by the Justice to approach. Axes throw left and right. Rallies exchange. Feels like Justice might be a bit isolated, but Happy while he's had the space. He's picking people off. He had the high ground too, and he's gotten a double. An easy third onto Wub, and even the little crouch spam. I'm liking this new version of Happy.
One of the interesting things there as well is Mag getting the knife pull onto Dredro was actually doubly effective, but Mag waited a little bit until Paris Eternal wanted to use Dredro's speed to disengage and then pulled Dredro away from a mainstay of Paris Eternal. So as they kept moving on their disengagement path, they left Dredro's aura because he got pulled elsewhere. Now Washington Justice have plenty of ults moving into this fight, and Dredro can only really answer one of them with a sound barrier.
Well, here's an answer for you. We're just not going to pick up the phone. Paris Eternal couldn't even move down main without a first pick. But I love the reaction of Justice to just speed in and see what else they can get, because one kill turned into 3, and that's great ult charge for the Justice, who are sitting on 4 ults.
Thanks for the help.
Yeah, no ults were even required for that one, considering that it was yet and again an early pick. I think it was Wub who fell first to Decay, getting some revenge in these Genji matchups. But now almost all the ults are available, bar the rallies for both teams. It's going to be a manic fight limit about who wants to invest the most and do it first.
The Rampage from Mag hits 2, Wub and Vestola, but they're supported by Dredro's Sound Barrier. Vestola tried to go for his own Rampage, and it was canceled. We'll look at the blades and see how this will divide the fight, because all I'm seeing is Wub dividing faces, and Decay not having that same impact. So we're left with a 4-on-3, favoring the Paris Eternal in the middle of the map. Decay is on the flank, wanted that equalizer, and got punished and trade back and forth. It's still numbers for Paris, as Justice, once they finish doing the math, kind of realized that, okay, let's sit in main, wait for the call, and the call is made by Mag. Happy's gonna go for picks. The overclock is activated. Khan has to keep that shield up. They gotta stay healthy behind the shout. Paris getting tossed up against the wall. Khan's Inspire's over on the right side. Paris not fully benefiting from it. And now without the speed from Dredro, Paris are locked into this fight. Maybe exactly where they want to be. Justice tussle back and forth. Paris Eternal has the point. And the longer this fight goes, the more the Eternal benefit.
Mag going to be the last to drop open and simply has to reset here. It was Dove coming back on the emergency Sojourn and hits a critical disruptor shot, and Happy can't go anywhere because Vestola gets almost a point-blank knife and then just pulls him to hold him in place in that slow field and do so much damage up close, removing the primary threat that the Washington Justice have. Now this final fight is going to come down to a pair of rallies, but Opener's advantage of a sound barrier is likely going to be what determines this if they can make a hugely powerful engagement.
Well, the rally, that'll be a good sustaining push for the Justice to leave the Mega Pack room and start to pressure the high ground. It's Blade v Blade, or just one Blade, and 2 rallies actually exchanged, but Khan's dead. And the great focus fire from the Justice to remove that main healer. Now Vestola's not gonna get enough support. And Justice is so good at identifying those goals and executing on them. Because as soon as they flip this over, this round is going to be done, but Paris are somehow still alive. And now that Wub's gone, he was the only one contesting. So it's not going to be, that's not going to go down any longer, as Justice will take the first round, 199.
Opener does a fantastic job there of holding off on the sound barrier for a little while longer. There was some great ult tracking going on, thinking, I think Wub has definitely generated the blade over the course of that previous brawly fight we had that was quite long, and there weren't really any major ultimates used that seemed to determine like where a huge amount of the damage was coming from, so you've got to assume a lot of it came from the Genji. And Opener gets a remarkably fast cast of a sound barrier off as well, so there's very little danger of him performing an Ajax beat. However, the thing that really draws my attention in that round, Lemon, is that Vestola hits the Rampax, essentially, dies during the Rampage cast. And that means that one of the primary offensive tools that's available to either of these comps and only comes up really once a control round was wasted.
And Khan has to be more conservative with his position now, especially that the Justice are going after him so much, and that's been killer for Justice's fights. Depending on what side of the coin you look at. Wub dashes in, uses the corner for cover. Vestola shouts to kind of at least draw the attention towards him and not Wub, who's repositioning. At the back, though, it feels like Paris were starting to get surrounded, and then their focus fire just kind of splits off, looking behind and at the front, and that's where Happy and Decay coalesce together. And we're excited if you're a Justice fan especially. So first fight for the Justice and point cap as well.
This is a good time for us to be able to recap some of the interactions that happened between the Junker Queen and the Genji, especially with the Reflect. While you can avoid the initial damage from the Carnage Cleave, which I think is 90 by using the Reflect, you still get afflicted by the wounds, Lemon, which means that you can finish off a low health Genji as a Junker Queen even when he's deflecting. The same goes for Knife.
Remember, Justice kind of got punished when they overextend their previous series, so they have to be measured. They don't want to go too far, but Khan is the one who's too far forward. Vestola went inside of the hut, and Khan was still out in the open, so you just have to be attached at the hip and play as an off-tank, as the desk suggested, being the only other member with armor, and that sustain is so critical, so Khan cannot be the first to fall for Eternal.
I feel like we're already seeing an augmentation in the play style of Decay from yesterday. He seems to be being a lot less haphazard and a bit more conservative of his position. In fact, we saw Decay almost waste an entire blade earlier because he was worried about damage that he was taking from a Dynamite. Staying alive and being able to find these critical insertions with the dashes when people are under 50 HP might be critical for the overall plan of the Justice moving forward.
We're gonna come up to some blade, these sound barrier fights. Vestola starting to get surrounded. The sound barrier from Opener to engage. Wub might have a free blade, but Justice want to get this to 75% plus if they win this fight here. But both Brigidas drop. All damage is almost permanent at this point. The K has the blade, waits for maybe the shout to be done. But now that so many members of Eternal have fallen, you just don't need to invest ult if you're the Justice. 75% plus out. This has been flawless.
Timing there of that engage was critical, and I think they caught Paris Eternal midway through plan forming, so the split off of that engage from a sound barrier was in all four corners of the map from Paris Eternal. They did not stick together and were easy to negotiate some out-personnel fights on. Well, the blades here, ready to go, wants someone.
Hey, he wanted Vigilante, he wanted his cousin, he's going after Mag, now he's back to Vigilante. It's just like we have to pick one thing that we're gonna kill. And at least it was Khan and Vigilante finally fall. 99% for the Justice. Paris that have all the weight on their shoulders. Will map one go the Justice's way? Dove's gonna try and sure if not, but Decay gets in his face, and Dove is eliminated. But you still have the numbers for the Justice to finish this off, but Vestola finally hits his first rampage on the map, but it's not gonna be very fruitful. Paris might have rotated or just flipped the point for the second, but Justice get it right back, and they make sure nobody can touch the Washington Justice. We'll take map number 1.
You hit the nail on the head there, Lemon. When I handed off to you, I was like, he aims for someone, because Paris Eternal could not decide on a target to focus. You want to go after Brigitte with that blade, because up close you can start to carve through that armor, and the armor doesn't mitigate much of the incoming blade damage. It's only 50 armor, and the blade does 110 damage per swing. You can weave those together with the dashes as well to try and get those finishers. And Paris Eternal just could not decide who they wanted to go after. That's a critical weakness when you are clashing with a team that seems as decisive as Washington Justice is.
Well, at least Justice knew how to clash, so not having those issues of overextending, they knew how far they could take it, and we're staggering Paris Eternal to almost 100-0 round 2. The Washington Justice are learning, but we'll see if Paris Eternal will take a page out of their book. We'll see after the break.
Decay go further? Can he plus Ultra his team?
When you have a Tracer player who is as good as Decay, you can beat anybody. And just the amount of pressure he puts on the map, just a huge difference maker on the game.
Decay stands tall, he's still alive. 100 HP left.
They have to kill Decay.
It's just 3 drones. The 1v1 on the card now. Drew just moves small wave, and it's going to be a blitz forward to keep Decay there and to keep the Justice in the round. The man is still alive. Everyone's keeping the hand at home. That's another. His pulse bomb stick rate is frankly frightening.
Hydron looking for the mega that gets claimed by Decays. You don't lose these, Decay. You don't lose these.
Player of the match here, my humble opinion, is going to have to be Decay.
Justice has been served in map 1. Take a look at the replay of Decay's work that he put in on Genji. I would say quite diffing Wub on the other side.
Yeah, and one of the things that Decay definitely managed to pull off here is a lack of deaths, which could have been construed as maybe a bit of an issue yesterday in the latter half of the series against the San Francisco Shock. It feels like Decay's being a lot more careful in this particular series to not overextend and be the main target that gets rushed after. You can see 19-2 when it comes to final blows to death, which is a pretty fantastic ratio, to be honest. That's a W+ ratio for Decay, and it feels like the comms are a little bit cleaner as well. A lot of people are being able to feed Decay the information as to when someone is dashable, just like how during an Echo meta you'd say that someone's beamable, and that means that he can make the quick in and out attempts to assassinate.
Yeah, it feels like Decay, he's good at identifying his own opportunities and having the confidence to really go for it. And I mean, he's an experienced player in the league. And you look at the other side, you look at a rookie like Wub, who just still got picked up by Paris Eternal and is still developing and was learning a whole bunch of other heroes. Finally goes back to something he's good at. But like we kind of commented on the Wub Blade where you even handed it off with like a question mark, and I totally agreed with the question mark of like, what is he cooking? What is he going after? Was it Vigilante? Was it going after Mag? Was it like, what was this, or Vestola, I guess, or whatever, but or Mag in that case. But it felt like maybe he was listening so much to Vestola or whoever else was calling to make sure he was making the correct decision. While I feel like it's like DPS in these metas, they have to have the confidence and really the know-how of knowing where to go.
Yeah, like confidence and mojo are a huge part of being able to pull off DPS in this meta, and I keep going back to what happened against Shock yesterday, and actually that was Decay having a little bit too much mojo and thinking, you know what, blading this spawn's fine. This will go great. But you need to find a happy middle ground where you are confident to take the opportunities when you see them, and where you're the one who can call, I'm going on Brig, you need to negotiate a 4 versus 4 over there, or join me on Briggs. I think what we saw happen, like you said, is he was setting up for the Brig, pulled the blade, and then someone on the team was like, oh, we're going Sojourn, we're going Sojourn. It's like, where's the Sojourn?
Well, we're going to Hollywood now. We're going to Hollywood now, where I feel like this is one of the more difficult rush maps to play because of how dominant the high grounds are, and at any point, Justice can decide when they want to initiate the fight. Now, they have actually Decay over on the left side, and Paris are not really punishing them because they're taking so much poke from Decay and friends from the Justice that it felt like Paris had a real opportunity, but they just sat there and did nothing.
Yeah, that was once again, unfortunately, a little bit of an example of a half-baked dive from Wub. We saw Wub actually make a very early engagement in towards Decay using the dash, because the dash can do damage through the deflect, so it makes sense. But it also means that Wub could not move quickly to try and counter Washington Justice's rush on top of Vestola, and it made for an easy kill.
Oh, not a Justice spawn hold. I can already see and hear the desk now of like, don't do this again. It would be, they're out in the open. Paris can go back to spawn at any moment to fully healed up, and it's Justice that have to run so far back just to get away. So of course this is gonna be chalked. Vigilante and now Mag are dead. Justice should have held their corner. That was their best position on defense, and they blew this fight.
I agree, but I'm not a huge fan of the spawn camp PLM, and the geometry of the map simply is not great. But the thing is, the objective takes a while to cap, so Washington Justice are going to be able to come on back, especially with a pair of speed boosters waiting for Opener to return. Mag's already staring down at them, likely going to give up the first tick here for their loss in that fight, but Web's taking a good amount of damage here.
Vigilante is close to rally. Got Soundbear from Dreedrove. They wanted to early engages and really assure of it. Soundbear starts from Wub, countered by the opener Soundbear. It's layered with the Vigilante rally. So Washington Justice have all the sustain in the world, but the question is, do they have the damage? Wub is permanently living, but all the focus fire from Justice wasn't on Wub. It was on Vestola and the supports behind him. So that's why Wub got ignored so much. So Justice managed to salvage that situation, but they want to make this mistake again. Round 2.
All right, the additional cover of a car here does at least make the spawn camp a little bit more palatable in that you can try and play behind that. However, I still think that Washington Justice are pushing there like a little bit against this rally.
Okay, at any point, Paris can go back to spawn, but they want to use Rally instead of just hide and wait this out, and they think this is winnable, and they exchange DPS, a 4-on-4. Vestola is taking overclock shots to the back of the head. Finally, this starts to pull forward for Paris Eternal, who are left with a minute and a half just to get that last tick. So now the Justice have the cooldowns to escape. They don't escape in the right direction. They take these short stops in buildings to find cover, and Wub has killed 2 people off screen while Dove chases away Opener. So there goes the final tick, I guess.
I really don't understand the MO of doing the spawn camp when you've already lost 2 ticks, because not only can you potentially get back capped, but also the attrition of when you lose people compared to Paris Eternal is so much worse. Paris Eternal can just play that fight a little bit more slowly, or even just so much more aggressively, because they can respawn and they'll eventually win that fight, and you won't be able to recontest into that point afterwards unless you're trickling in one at a time. Overall, a terrible plan from Washington Justice.
Well, maybe a good plan here. Vestola hits the 2-man rampage on Mag and Happy, and Vestola stays anchored in that back line. He's been hitting these knives quite well, and we already highlighted how Zarya players would maybe have really great mechanics to pull off plays like this. And even in the play of the game in map 1, it was 2 knife pulls in a row as Paris take the high ground.
Yeah, Zarya players in particular, they know a lot, or at least they have a good amount of game sense as to how to live for a while longer as a more fragile tank in these frontline coordinated attacks. Is going to be an attempt to try and seize the high ground here, and Open has gone quite low.
Yeah, how is Dreedro that low? Finally, they found him. Sometimes he's so speedy, he dropped off the high ground or something like that. So Paris have lost their high ground control. They're getting chased inside of Saloon, and at least Khan is more attached to Vestola at that moment, but it's really just Paris losing out on damage. It's this whole meta is about focus fire. It's about being a good team, not being about a good individual. So teams are finding out the hard way, hence why Shock, Glads, and all the top teams are looking a lot more human.
Yeah, even with some of the performances we've seen from players like Kevster, it has not been a guarantee of victory for teams like Gladiators. And once again, Washington Justice getting much more aggressive. I don't mind it so much here because the payload's still got quite a bit of leeway to give.
There's the rampage from Mag. As soon as Paris leaves spawn, all 4 members of Paris are anti-healed. They're saved by the sound barrier, but they still haven't made any space because Justice have not left their face.
No.
And the cancel on Wub's blade. In what universe is that the right play? It's not. And Opener didn't even have to use the sound barrier, so they can Justice now can use this in the next engage.
Yeah, that sound barrier is going to be absolute gold to open it because there's no major stimuli that's going to force it. You can use it instead to just really mess with Paris Eternal when they go a touch too far with either their speed boost or their commanding shout and just slap back at them with a huge amount of health because you don't have to worry about a rampage and no, you don't have to worry about a blade either. What a play from Happy.
So smart. Justice take the high ground and then drop and can use a sound barrier at any moment, but Paris Eternal were quick to use shout and rally just to disengage, and Justice are fine waiting for the rally to end, especially if they kill Dove. It's a 5-on-4. Paris should be leaving, and at any point, Justice can use a sound barrier to really guarantee themselves a fight win. As Paris are still hanging around the choke, they'll have the speed, and Justice make the call. They want to take the fight here and now. The sound barrier will assure of that. They immediately remove the supports of Eternal, and there's no shot that Eternal have to do anything but go back to spawn. So there's only 24 seconds left, and Paris don't have the healthiest of pushes right now.
An amazing disruptor shot from Happy as well there to peel for a Vigilante who went a touch too far and needed to kite away. Now Vigilante's up top and could freely just hand out armor packs without being too early pressured. Vestola backed into a corner. The disruptor field is not ideal, admittedly, but someone's got to dash for the cart here, Lemon.
Dub is trying to skate away, and Decay has the hunt down. 2 members of Eternal, though, are sent to go touch the cart, and Khan is just left out the dry. You see the X-ray of him at the back, but Justice are more focused on, well, we can just drain overtime and win that way. So leaving Khan behind, Justice returned to the objective. Wub is trying to dash from building to building, but you can't escape Decay or the rest of the Justice. Paris Eternal will have to play this from behind. Dub has already used shift jump. He gets deflected, and he's not dead yet. So this might be winnable in a 4 versus 4. It depends if Dub can get the Mega Pack and what he can do on the flank. Picking off Vigilante before the rally is important, but he's already popped it. And Paris Eternal don't have the rampage because Vestola just died. So Justice have the sustain, they have a tank, and all they have to do is bulldoze Eternal away. But Dredro will buy some time. The Soundbeer has been used. Vestola can rampage from downtown to return himself into the fight. As Khan is gone, so you won't have a lot of healing. So Wob has to go absolutely feral with this blade and make up for what he did before. He got stuck on a post. He got stuck on a post, and that will end the attack for Eternal.
Oh no, Lemon, that's a heartbreaker. If Wob had managed to stay alive just a second longer, admittedly it was 1 versus 4, so it was probably never going to work, but the combination of Rampage and Blade could have got Paris Eternal a little bit further. Alas, that was a wild last fight where maybe Decay got a little bit too overzealous again, thinking, oh, it's overtime. We win these ones easily. You still have to maintain your concentration. I do want to point out the strat here from Washington Justice, though, and how in particular it differs from teams like Dallas Fuel, which have been victims of these overtime backcaps before, especially on Colosseo against the LA Gladiators. Washington Justice identified properly that the best way to try and take that fight was to force people to go to cart and break away from a main fight, and then take a 5 versus 3 against those who were too slow to make that beeline for the objective, and then take a 5 versus 2 against the ones who are remaining. Unfortunately, Decay kind of split off to try and deal with some stragglers and got a less than ideal 1 versus 1, but overall Washington Justice played that very intelligently.
Yeah, I feel like there's a massive Genji gap right now because Justice macro-wise are making mistakes. Whether it's the double spawn hold where they got punished once, didn't learn their lesson, did it again, got punished, full cat for Paris. But Justice macro-wise are much better at point B, knowing to stay on the high ground and when to drop down. And Opener being very smart on his usage of Sound Barrier and not immediately popping it as soon as Wub uses Blade. So Justice is very winnable for them to go to series point, the box of victory halfway to B. So Wub's on this off angle on the left, Justice opting to ignore it and see if they can access anyone from Paris Eternal that is close. They get the dash onto Dove, and Wub has been removed on Justice's journey towards the objective. So Paris have no damage, no take, and no chance to hold this.
So they knew that Wub would be able to escape with the dash and use the reflect if he got sped up on there, so Washington Justice don't bother to try and finish off Wub. Instead, they just allow it to drain Khan's resources with the armor packs. This should be an easy cap. Washington Justice are, of course, currently playing gatekeepers to the old spawn of Paris Eternal. This might be one of the most aggressive caps I've ever seen on Hollywood, as Happy just hops in place, waiting for the car to unlock. You okay in there, Halfred?
He's happy on the cart, so leave him alone. Everyone else from the Justice is so speedy, so this is probably Happy would be left behind anyway. But Paris now go to the high ground. They get actually booped from Opener, so Paris got to do this all over again, fighting for the high ground. They know they can't leave the Justice up here, but there's so much damage from this shotgun from Mag at close range that Paris kind of overstayed their welcome. And it's always Khan that is dying first in these fights, and it's just costing Eternal the sustain, because all Justice have to do is out-sustain them.
There were 10 seconds of play there that will really highlight how good a Junker Queen Mag is, and that is dropping under 100 health and not panicking and popping that shout, because it means that now Paris Eternal, they're playing from behind, and they have to try and break through this blockade of Washington Justice to even touch the car, which is getting closer and closer.
No one could touch.
Except
you get shot off of it. What? I can't believe I cursed that. Justice are just spot holding. I can't believe they're even this far. We told them not to do this, and now poor Dredro has this army of people coming for him. So the Justice easily and decisively win map 2 and go to series point.
What a performance from the Justice. Mag is doing incredibly well on the Junker Queen. Didn't get too much time to talk about it, but overall, Washington Justice, their macro understanding of how this meta works is proving to be superior in almost every way to the Paris Eternal. On the other side, Washington Justice, the forbidden words, reverse sweep. They were looking incredibly dominant yesterday as well. They were looking super good in maps 1 and 2, and then they weren't. The question is, can Washington Justice be good for 3 maps in a row?
That is the million-dollar question. We're going to throw it to a quick break, and we'll have the answer for you after this. we just want to give a massive shout out to all the wonderful and talented artists out there who've been supporting the Overwatch League and their favorite players. And it's finally time that we show some love back. If you guys submit your art at overwatchleague.com/art-gallery, we may feature your art on broadcast. You might have seen that during the break, including this wonderful piece by Santa. So thank you all so much for showing your support for the players. They really enjoy it.
You guys share your art and I'll share some artisanal Overwatch play, because we've got ourselves a break stat card coming on up, so we can take a look at the young gun of the Washington Justice in Vigilante. And it really feels like Vigilante and Open are doing a really good job, not only of not dying, but also doing a good amount of damage. But 13-2, the final blows from Vigilante, playing so close to Mag, means that he's often able to get those last little, just few points of damage that are needed to push someone over into the spawn room. And it's a welcome change for Washington Justice, to be honest, with how well Krillin was doing on the Ana, Opener's popping off on the Lucio, Vigilante's looking good on both the Ana and the Brigitte, because last year, to not be too cruel, the support line was thoroughly unremarkable from Washington Justice out of a roster that looked like it was going to be so incredible in just like title-worthy rosters. The supports kind of let a lot of the fans down when it came to the overall efficacy. As we head into our next map, Dorado, let's hope that Paris Eternal had a little bit of a powwow between maps 2 and map 3 to maybe give us a game today.
Yeah, we asked before the break, oh, well, let's see if any of the fans got it right. Can Justice actually win 3 maps in a row without blowing it? I mean, there's multiple teams, by the way, that have either gotten reverse swept, either almost got reverse swept. There's been way too many game 5s at the start of this meta.
Yes.
As even the top teams have been tweeting out that any team is capable of winning this meta. So I've been kind of looking forward to seeing the rise of teams like Justice and Eternal, as it's like I've already mentioned, the cohesion and synergy of how you run these fights is almost more important than the individual mechanics, although there's a pretty big gap between WUB and Decay. But now you're starting to see that gap even between Vigilante and Con, where Con went 2-18 overall in the series, while as Vigilante went 15-8. So there's a big difference in deaths, and although the desk already highlighted that Brigittas are playing more like off tanks, you're going to see a way higher rise in deaths. Con is dying, though, like almost twice as much as Vigilante, so keep that in mind in these fights.
Okay, Paris Eternal setting up for the classic spawn camp here, but with Dove on the Ashe, that means a lot more damage is going to be put out in the early stages of a fight where you don't have any real warm-up that you have to build up to on the Ashe, like the Railgun, and of course the Dynamite on tightly packed teams like these Rush teams really taxes the healers.
Now above them, above the Justice, is the Eternal, but some have dropped. Dove has to be careful too. He doesn't have as long of an escapability as a Sojourn does. He only has the Coach gun, so he has to play things a lot more conservative. And he's taking kind of random shots, trying to figure out where that's coming from. But as Justice are all clumped up, that Dynamite damage does a lot, and that's going to help WUB get more finishing blows and dash resets, which is something he struggled with. And it's already working out. This adjustment, this change of DPS helped Eternal take a more convincing fight. Just knowing when to pull back can sometimes be an issue for Eternal, but that's a 3K for WUB.
Oh, that's a great start for WUB, who were saying was getting a little bit difficult by Decay to begin with, but look at this, already 90% ult charge, more than anyone else in the lobby. One of the things that I praised Mag for on Hollywood was his ability to just hold on to the commanding shouts, even when things look dire, in order to leave them as a threat that still needs to be considered. But now Vestola's doing that as well, being quite patient with the commanding shouts and making Mag feel very reticent about using his own and letting people get very low and in poor positions before they get hit with it.
Justice are trying to counter-rotate before Paris jump on them, but it's too late. WUB has already brought out the blade. 2 swipes into Vigilante, and it's a match. Happy gets some love too before Opener, who's been surprisingly fragging lately, ends that before any more kills happen. But it's still a net win for Paris Eternal off of a successful WUB blade.
Juju doing a good job during this blade as well of just essentially ferrying around the Genji so that he gets the additional 30% speed boost, or even more if Juju decides to invest the amp it up as well. What appears to be on a whole new flow right now as Opener. Well, evidently they may decide to use an earlier beat here, knowing that WUB doesn't have a blade and that they're unlikely to have that. Oh no.
Yeah, the deflect ain't gonna save you against the swipe, and Decay creates that gap again. Justice used the rally to make sure they don't lose any bodies. They can keep up this momentum. It feels like just the spawn camping Justice. But thankfully, the spawn from Eternal is so far away that we're not gonna see that yet, but we will see a .8 cap for the Justice.
Trading only rally for rally and still being able to trade that for a point of capture here on Dorado, that's a great deal for Washington Justice because they really need a sieging tool like a Blade to be able to win a fight against the high ground. If Paris Eternal decide to actually take that, it looks like they're actually going to try and go for the earliest fight they can here and forgo the high ground advantage to instead engage with Bob.
Yeah, this is a really early engage when Paris Eternal could have played their high ground and just waited things out a little bit more, but now they're kind of stuck on the statue side. At least they can use the cover of the payload to escape back, but the rotations to high ground are just way too far for Eternal, so it's going to be a low ground approach unless they want to go through Courthouse, but Eternal are at this choke.
Well, Bob has been spotted. The question is, can he be finished by a dive at the moment? Not too worried as Dove catches a headshot. Happy the legendary hit scan hits one more.
That's the type of mechanics you need on the Sojourner, or else you're just going to be useless. The sound area is used from Opener to make up for the loss of Vigilante so that the Justice can see if they can take a quick fight, but Vestola at half health uses the Rampage. Opener and Decay hits. They're able to disengage behind the card as Paris Eternal have to go past the choke to finish off those kills, and it didn't really work out.
Oh, especially considering where the cart is at the moment, I would have loved for Vestola to just hold that and die on cart, because then Vestola could control an engagement from the high ground with the Rampage. Now Mag is being able to move all the way forward with a Rampage ready to go. Once again, Happy's just going to be playing on the cart, as now Washington Justice have themselves a power position to play from. That's a solo blade on Wub. Get out of my lobby.
Yeah, what? Why? I mean, you've been able to diff Wub without the blade. Are we just being mean? Are we bullying the rookie? That's not very nice. That's a knife into a tank, but Paris are long gone at this point. Justice, they overextend, but sounds like they are starting to learn at what point to pull back. So they're going to keep doing what they're doing as Eternal have to come out with their blade. Wub has already been anti-healed by the Rampage of Mag, so this might not be an ultimate that Eternal can even depend on. It's just as random over before Eternal could even make a decision.
Strong wrap around there from Mag as well, getting two antis. What a knife onto Khan. Get back here. I don't recall ordering any mercy today. Decay with 2 exit frags, and Washington Justice 3 minutes to get through this next point, and a premium on positioning when it comes to controlling this high ground. That means Paris Eternal are going to have to invest more time in rotating around, and you can see this. Mag's actually waiting for a big carnage as they come through this area, and that's 3 people hit. Unbelievable.
The shout used first by Paris Eternal, matched by the Vigilante rally. Justice so healthy at this point. Now they're chasing Dove, and that lack of escapability is not going to help him out. You should have just stayed in spawn, buddy. And Justice, speaking of which, are heading for they're staying here, but also the cart is approaching, and they have 2.5 minutes.
Happy, definitely gold objective time right now. Maybe not as high on the damage. Khan actually swaps over to the emergency Ana here, which is going to be interesting. Maybe you can sleep the blade, maybe hit a clutch anti to maybe help Wub get some value out of this blade.
Just an anti, something needs to happen. He actually hit the anti on Vigilante and Opener, but Wub's blade is all focused on Decay and Mag, but if you ain't got nobody to heal, it's still a W. So just as long as you focus fire the same targets, it'll work out. Justice support's out trying to get back. Dreedro's like 1v3 over there, decides he's not getting help and heads back to spot.
Alright, Paris Eternal getting a little bit lost in the sauce there of victory. It smelled so good, but in the end, just still 3 versus 2 is a big risk, and you've got to respect your opponents. And Washington Justice have found that out the hard way a couple of times. This is a very easy seeding of the high ground from Paris Eternal, just because they want this safe position for Khan to operate from. But remember, if Washington are on the high ground, they're going to be harder to hit anti on.
Decay just sneaks up and assassinates people left and right. It's insane how much he makes Wub and Dove cower behind cover. Justice own the space and will not be giving it up. Vestola's the only one there. Wub was on the other side of the wall. He's late to the party, and there's no more pizza. Washington Justice cap with 1:16.
Admittedly, Paris Eternal they got a lot more out of that previous, out of this last point on Dorado than I thought they would have, especially considering how much damage they took from Mag on that secondary engagement. After they got spawn camp, Mag got a 3-man carnage on people as they tried to move through a narrow doorway, and then could disengage super easily because Happy just threw in a disruptor field in the doorway afterwards, so trying to punish Mag for his out-of-position play became untenable for a team that had already had taken so much damage. Alas, Paris Eternal rally around Khan on the Ana, and unfortunately Khan, the fights weren't long enough for him to be able to really build up towards the Nano, so couldn't really help the Junker Queen or the Genji with survivability, but Wub hit a huge blade as well. One of the real risks that you take when you're going up against an Ana is that because the fights start to become so short, you can't have these extended moments where you can just heal up someone taking a bunch of poke, because you just get rushed on top of. That's why teams are opting for Brig instead of Ana at the moment.
Yeah, these are insane mechanics by Decay. Like, he just has more experience than Wub on it, so Wub will just need more time to develop on that hero, because a lot has been asked of him just as soon as he got signed to the team. And I really love the Ana swap, especially because it just creates this threat of not only just to sleep into Decay, but to sleep into Mag. There's nothing to protect Mag from that, and if Mag gets slept, he's dead. So just having Paris being able to control their own spawn helped at some points. They didn't react to his anti though on Vigilante and Opener, so Paris got to talk to each other and hope this O2 does not boom them. Speaking of which, Justice are above them, and Wub's been trying to harass Decay off the high ground, hasn't been successful yet, and the grapple is not always consistent with some of these window pays, but Khan, something is consistent. Him died first in the fight. So much focus from the Justice on those healers, and Vestolas doesn't have anyone to help him.
Oh, Opener going down is interesting. This now means that Washington Justice is going to have trouble actually controlling the tempo of fights, and so it's going to be a disengagement and a ceding of ground. However, Lemon, I've opened the holy text, I've read the Dwarven runes. The prophecy of Washington Justice being good for 3 maps in a row is slowly becoming fulfilled. The Blood Moon is rising, Mercury is in retrograde. Paris Eternal don't have many ults to try and force through here, but if Decay gets a little bit too brazen, a little bit too confident, that could be exploited.
Yeah, if Wub can't win the 1v1 against Decay, just mark him, stay away from him, and kill someone else. But we have to pause because we have to review what just happened to Dredro. How did he just get headshot in the middle, like duck hunt by Happy? But yeah, there's probably some technical stuff happening.
Yeah, sometimes things just happen this way, Lemon. Washington Justice, this gives me a little bit of a moment to talk about why I gave Mag so much praise on Hollywood when they were playing on high ground at 100 HP and did not pop the commanding shout. Because what that meant is that Mag could actually just crouch down and try and get slowly healed up, and it meant that he could actually escape a lot better when Paris Eternal actually took the elevator up to try and finish him off afterwards. If he'd popped the commanding shout for the instant HP afterwards, there's a good chance that he wouldn't have been able to leave that spot safely, and when he did, he wouldn't have had any health to help him do so, and that actually saved Mag's life, as well as giving Vigilante a speed boost to be a little bit more brazen with the positioning on the Brigitte. So I think that Mag's understanding of that cooldown is one of the main assets Washington Justice have in this particular meta, but Vestola's currently exploiting that as well, especially on the first point defense of Dorado that Paris had, where he was holding onto it himself to try and make Mag not use it when it was needed.
Well, what was needed for Paris was to scout and to stop jumping in front of Happy. If he testing his mechanics, you're gonna find this the hard way, and it's the spawn camp in Justice. I don't know what else to tell you. We're gonna stay here until they get punished, and they've already lost their tank, so Justice should not be hanging around any longer than this. At least they conserved Vigilante's life. He got pretty low at that moment, but Paris Eternal are equally just as low. And that's a great disruptor shot from Happy at the choke. This will stop Paris from moving into market, and Justice now just have to buy time for Mag to get back.
Oh, Opener just pulled such a good bait to allow Decay to escape without needing to use a dash. Opener just Houdini'd Paris Eternal so hard and made the music commanding shout as well to try and get that chase. Vestola admittedly doing a huge amount of damage right now, but Dove's already dead.
Just Paris got pounced on. When you have the high ground, Justice can just jump on you, get into the back line, axe anyone close range. That's kind of the biggest difficulty with running Junker Queen is how do you gap close, how do you get close enough to axe them and to do that lethal damage, because she has a lot of burst when you hit the axe and the double shotgun combos, so Paris Eternal have to be very wary of their rotations.
And now the advantage that Vestola had when it came to the Rampage has slowly ebbed away, because Mag's only 18% shy, and it can be countered by either of Washington Justice's ultimates. And right now, Paris Eternal, they might be trapped in a very rampageable area. Hello there!
Oh, that's a massive rampage, but Vigilante used the rally to keep everyone up, and as Paris just decided to keep running forward, despite to just help out with the rampage, they walked into the disruptor shot of Happy, and Justice also conserved the sound barrier. So this is Justice being so smart.
One awesome plan to just try and force them out of an area through pure intimidation, knowing that they'd all have to pass through that disruptor shield and they could not deal with the cleave on top of that damage. Washington Justice, they are reading Paris like a book right now, still have an ult advantage. There's a rally from Khan to answer an overclock of Happy.
Oh, he's gonna have to chunk through. You really have to go after the same target. Dreedro got down to half health, used the sound barrier before he fell, but Khan's shield is shredded. Always the first one to get focused by the Justice, and now you have the Blade for good measure. Justice left without ultimates, and 20 seconds for Eternal, just the cap point A.
Oh, the Mercury retrograde. Is it true? Is it real? The Dwarven Runes told me so, Lemon. Washington Justice are 10 seconds away from winning 3 maps in a row and sweeping the Paris Eternal, finally getting the win that has eluded them thus far as Vestola touches the cart.
Oh, what's dead again? Oh, the Blades have been lackluster, and Dub pops the overclock and makes up for it. Dub just killed both supports from the Justice. Paris Eternal just needs to not blow this, and finally it's all okay. It's Daijobu. Paris Eternal go to point A.
Everybody breathe, everybody breathe. This is still the Washington Justice we're talking about. Paris Eternal, they're going to be able to cap here. Washington Justice had a longer spawn because we're in overtime, so we won't be able to come back and recontest, even though in regular time, there might have been some leeway there for another fight. Washington Justice, once more, are going to go for their high progressive mentality, and this is such a change around for the identity of Washington Justice as a team, when previously they were one of the more slow and lackadaisical teams we had in the league, Lemon.
Oh, Dove in a bad spot. Okay, he gets out. Disruptor shot though from Happy to help things out, but Justice forgot how to leave. They know how to go. They know how to press W, but knowing when to S is a whole different story. So Paris Eternal carrying that momentum.
That did give Vigilante the chance to build up towards the rally, but that's not going to be enough to answer what Vestola's cooking, and that's going to be the Rampage, which is ready to go. I'd love to see Vestola take a advanced high ground position. You can see him all the way in the back at the moment, setting up through the courthouse. This could be an excellent place for a Rampage, but wants Washington Justice to go down to the ground floor first, so the rest of Paris Eternal are in a much easier position to try and follow up on that.
That's the type of patience I wish Paris did on their defense, and while Justice jumped down, they walked, though, right into the Rampage of Vestola and lose Opener on entry. Vigilantes Inspire and Rally might be enough to help Mag and Decay get back to safer spots, but now that Justice have no supports, if they get staggered here, Paris are already halfway to B. This could be dangerous.
Because of Washington Justice being quite non-committal to these fights as well. After that rally was expended, Paris Eternal could just pick off a bunch of Washington Justice players who were quite nervous after getting antied by the rally rather than battling to the death. And now Washington Justice, they once again have one fight's worth of leeway here on point 2 as Happy pops overclock.
Happy has overclock, everyone run, hide under the bed, but at least Dreedro has a sound barrier. Paris Eternal coalescing inside of Bank to go after Mag, who drops dangerously low at 25% HP as Dove jumps out. Happy couldn't get the execute. Now they go after Khan, but he lives through because they had overhealth and Rally. Vestola now gets to pop off as everyone from Justice is in his face, and Paris cap point B without even losing a fight.
Okay, Paris Eternal, they're recapturing the momentum, and Washington Justice are also misstratting quite considerably here to kite back into that enclosed area. When Happy was looking for longer sightlines of the overclock, was a little bit of anti-synergy that really drained Happy's ability to be important and valuable with that ultimate.
They just pulled Mag. This is something Paris can execute on, and what will react to the pull with the Blade, but Sound Barrier from Opener will keep Mag still kicking, and if Paris overstay their welcome, there's a Rampage from Mag with their name on it, but Decay, he can handle things all himself. He's a big boy with a big blade, and Paris Eternal reset.
All right, the decay that was promised returns once more, but that was by no means cheap for the Washington Justice. Both the Blade and the Sound Barrier expended leaves just Mag with this lonesome Rampage, and not much that can answer either of these Junker Queen songs on either of the team's supports. That means that this could be a 1 versus 1 battle in the end between Vestola and Mag, but Dove can potentially pull some magic out with the overclock after people are antied.
Oh, Vigilante was actually scouting, and now they're going on top of the bridge, and they're engaging as Paris went down May. They're on the low ground. Vigilante's low, but Dorijo gets the finish, and that could be massive, but Justice have already got more than enough picks. Paris got trades just due to the lack of healing that Justice had. But Justice are so good at surprising at Eternal, and Eternal have no way of reacting well.
That's a brutal stagger as well onto Wub. That means Mag's going to be able to get back in good time. I didn't even see where Vestola was using that Rampage in particular. Vigilante can open up this fight with the rally a little bit earlier to make sure that all of that armor is going to be in place before Paris Eternal can start stripping it away, particularly with Dove's overclock. It needs to be Headshot City right now for Paris Eternal, or their Summer Showdown is starting off with a fart rather than a bang.
Justice is already sneaking into their backline. Happy gets pressured out by Wub, and Wub can't convert on the kill they needed the most. As Vestola falls, it's up to Dove to see what the space that he has left. If this overclock is going to pick off Vigilante an opener, but they hide around cover, and Dove has been almost overly patient, not wanting to adjust his position to stay away from Decay, but Decay came to him, and the Justice are slaying, and the Blade, just for good measure, they don't even need it, and Dridro's left to face the armies of the Justice all by himself again, and the Washington Justice are able to win 3 maps in a row.
I can't believe my eyes, Lemon, but in the end, all's well that ends well. That was such a well-managed final fight as well from Washington Justice, knowing that they had so much leeway in terms of cart push and Paris Eternal. It was overtime. They needed someone on the cart. No matter where we go, if we go as 5, they're always going to be outnumbered unless we fight them where they are maintaining overtime. So they just catch the split remnants of Paris Eternal, finding themselves a Brigitte, finding a Sojourn on the flank, getting the Genji afterwards, and then only when everyone else had been slain and outnumbered by larger numbers of personnel, we saw Dridro on the cart be turned upon and the cart taken back by the Washington Justice.
That was a great series for the Justice. Some rotational mistakes here and there, and it was dominance throughout, but when we highlight this player of the match, it's gonna be the most obvious one. The biggest gap created in DPS, player of the match will be Decay. I know he had his hot and cold moments against the Shock, but his Genji was insane. The fact that you can rely on his Dragon Blades to get multi-kills almost every single time he uses it makes him such a dependable person for this series.
And dependable is a critical word here, Lemon, because I think the real story of Decay here is the turnaround in him playing for Decay. Instead, now he's playing for the Washington Justice, not making as many hero plays. Only when the rest of the team can back him up and they can make the hero play as a collective is Decay really fully committing to these blades and to these dives. And that's really what hoisted them last time against the San Francisco Shock. Decay going to play for Decay. Now, with Washington Justice moving as a singular unit, they are a truly dangerous foe in this meta.
Yeah, 3 deaths per 10 is very low for a Genji, and even though I hyped up his multi-kills, there's also a lot of fights where the Genji is going to Blade and you're going to either have 1 or 2 support ultimates from the other side, and then the next most important thing for that Genji to do is don't try to ego that. Don't try to ego a barrier and a rally. It's time to leave, and Decay has that understanding, hence the just Dragon Blade efficiency being low, but what's most important is his deaths being low, meaning he's surviving, he's getting ults out, and when those support ults aren't available on the other side, then he's killing everyone and everything, which makes it so Justice can conserve the rest of their ultimates and cycle their fight wins so well.
Yeah, 15 final blows per 10 as well. That's kind of mad. That's definitely more of a Decay who became a Season 3 mercenary to be feared kind of stat line. I remember the glory days of Decay when he came in and played a little bit of Zarya for Washington Justice. They're like, you know what, this is pretty good. I think we're going to try and keep this guy. And finally, Decay is really paying back those dividends that have been invested in him. Washington Justice, they are looking a lot better in this meta, to be honest, and a lot of it's on the back of Mag being able to play the Junker Queen so well. There's a good chance that this is a tournament that they're going to go to and they're going to really shake things up.
Wow, I think there's one shakeup coming up. The LA Gladiators versus the Houston Outlaws. Both these teams starting 0-1. Surprisingly, from Houston getting reverse swept with some new rookies coming in to the LA Gladiators losing their first match. What is happening in this new meta? Well, we're going to find out after we go to a break and get some interviews done.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Upper Deck, the official trading card of the Overwatch League. And by TeamSpeak, the official voice supplier of the Overwatch League.
Welcome to Game Break, everybody. I'm here joined by Vigilante from Washington Justice. Vigilante, congratulations on the win. Now, this was a very fast, clean 3-0 victory for the Washington Justice. And I want your honest opinion or your honest answer. Did you prior to starting this match, do you guys actually think that this was going to be an easy win for the team? 자, 일단 첫 번째 질문 시작 전에 오늘 승리 거두신 거 너무 축하드리면서 비전트 선수 어떻게 오늘 경기에 들어오시면서 시작하기 전에 오늘 파리와의 경기가 좀 어느 정도 좀 이렇게 쉬운 좀 경기가 좀 쉬울 것 같다라고 좀 예상을 하셨나요?
네, 쉬울 거라고 생각은 하고 있었어요. 근데 저희 생각보다 좀 많이.
네. 원래 생각했던 것보다 좀 더 많이 쉬었다?
네, 그렇게 해주세요.
Alright, so Vijay says yes, he did expect this to be an easy win, but it was honestly easier than his expectation. What do you think made it so easy for you guys? 자, 그러면 방금 좀 이제 쉬울 거라고 예상을 하셨다고 하셨는데 그거에 대한 좀 이유를 여쭤봐도 괜찮을까요? 왜 쉬울 거라고 예상을 좀 하셨나요?
비둘기가 전해줬어요.
죄송합니다. 한 번만 더 다시 한번 뭐가요?
그 비둘기가 전해줬어요.
비둘기가
무슨
전해줬다고요?
말인지 모르시나? 네.
죄송합니다. 못 알아듣네. 비둘기요? 알겠습니다. 비둘기. Sorry guys. I couldn't hear what 네. 들려오는 소문으로. Got it. Alright. So yes, Vigilante first answered by saying a pigeon told him that it was going to be an easy win. I actually couldn't get that reference, so apparently it means that like it's someone or like he just had the feeling or like he just knew that it was going to be an easy win. All right, my final question for you, Vigilante, is you're a flex support player, but you popped off today on that Brigade today or Brig. Yeah. So how's playing Brig for the team going for you? 자, 일단 두 번째 질문 마지막으로 또 원래는 서브 힐러로 활동을 하시는 비질란트 선수인데 오늘 이제 또 현 메타에서 지금 좀 브리기테로 활동을 하고 계신데요. 어떻게 좀 브리기테를 하는 거에 대해서 좀 어떠신가요?
처음에 좀 많이 어려웠었는데 하다 보니까 방망이 휘두르는 거 좀 재밌네요.
All right. When I first had to jump on the Brig role, it definitely wasn't easy. It was pretty difficult at first, but once I got used to it, swinging that mace around is pretty fun. All right, Vigilante, that is it for the interview. Thank you so much for your time. Again, big congratulations on the win. 자, 이걸로 인터뷰 마치도록 하겠습니다. 비전트 선수 오늘 승리 너무나도 축하드립니다. 감사합니다. 바이바이.
감사합니다.
Vigilante, a little joker. A little pigeon told him.
Pigeon, yeah.
Swinging that mace around, you know?
That's what Custa did in his pro career.
No, I rode on walls, fell off walls, and then died. And then I was like, that's enough for me.
Yeah, so good at riding walls, so you get benched for it. But, that's a story for another day.
Ooh, that was wow.
It was technically a compliment.
Yeah, I know, that's true.
Yeah. So at least we got the pred right to Washington Justice to beat the Paris.
Good job, Danny. We did it.
We did it. 3-5 now.
We're doing it. I said in the pre-show that I was looking forward to more 5-mappers today, and we just had 2-3-0s. So my pred's not going great so far. But who knows? We have one more match in store. But before we get there, we got to recap the one we just witnessed, of course. Paris Eternal. Not a great season for them, and not a great start to the Summer Showdown for them either. The Washington Justice, it looked like they were in control from the get-go here. Really, I think they were on like a path on revenge here, Like they wanted to actually get a win after getting a reverse swept yesterday, and they look pretty solid here overall, Costa.
Yeah, everything that we saw from them and the good parts against the San Francisco Shock showed up again today. I think that they look very cohesive, they look very coordinated. They have a great understanding of how they want to play as a team. Whether or not I completely agree with it everywhere, like this, Lemon Kiwi and Leg Day talked about it a lot on this Hollywood of the spawn hold makes sense on the first fight, but after losing 2 ticks, it doesn't make sense to go do the spawn hold again. So there is some questions, and they do get a little antsy from time to time, but the Paris Eternal just weren't able to punish them effectively for this, some of those mistakes that they were making. I talked about it coming into a Paris Eternal. This could have been the great equalizer, but they just don't look that comfortable in this meta right now. You can see Khan over here on the Ana right now. It's a desperation swap from him right there. Not feeling comfortable on the Brig, just getting isolated first time and time again. The team not really helping out that much. Dub playing a bunch of the Ashe. not getting the effectiveness of it. So, back to the drawing board for the Paris Eternal.
Yeah, it feels like a bit of a straightforward match win here for the Washington Justice, of course. Expected to beat the Paris Eternal and did so in convincing fashion. Does it mean anything extra to you, perhaps, Danny, that Washington Justice did it in a 3-0 way? Like, does that inspire confidence in you that Washington are able to, like, not show weakness in a match like this?
I mean, even yesterday, of course, they couldn't get the win, but I think they were looking really good yesterday. Even I think this sort of cemented that Washington is not a bad team. For now.
For now.
Yeah,
sorry, I just wanted to get some asterisks in there.
For now. Until Assassin comes out with the Sombra and Costa starts malding. But yes, for now, I think they're in a good spot.
They're in a good spot. I tend to agree with that, and I'm looking forward to see Washington play some more mid-table teams and see how, if they can advance and actually compete with the likes of Florida Mayhem, for example. On a Spitfire, just saw Houston Outlaws that is coming out next, going up against the LA Gladiators for our final match of the day. This is going to be an interesting one. Both teams started off 0-1 here in the Summer Showdown. The LA Gladiators, of course, they lost to the Dallas Fuel. And then the Houston Outlaws got reverse swept by the New York Excelsior in day one. We did not expect that at all. We would have previewed this as like a top-tier match going into this one. Do you still feel that way? Or did Houston Outlaws getting reverse swept by New York, did that kind of put you off the Outlaws this meta?
It does leave a little bit of a sour taste in your mouth. Like, I did like some of the things that we saw from the Outlaws. It seemed like they had a great understanding of how they wanted to play the meta. Obviously, they have a couple of rookies coming in Lep and Doge, and they play quite well. But it's the New York Excelsior, but we don't really know where everyone stands as of right now. And that's what I'm curious about this match. The Gladiators losing to the Dallas Fuel, is that the Dallas Fuel being one of the better teams, or the Gladiators struggling in this meta? And the vice versa can be said for the Houston Outlaws. So this is a great sort of base point for both of these teams of how good are we and what are they going to show in matches.
So far, we only predict matches, of course, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense to predict map scores because it makes the game even harder. But I still kind of want to get, like, a map score prediction in this one. Are we expecting the Outlaws to just get, like, 3-0'd by an amazing team by the Gladiators? Or do we actually think that the meta has kind of, like, neutralized the matchup and this might be like a 5-mapper? Danny, you're looking at Costa, but I'm going to
Danny has a thought going through his head that he wants to say.
What do you think?
I expect this one to be a lot closer than the previous two because both are great teams. Of course, Los Angeles Gladiators. Houston's definitely not a team that to just look down on either. So I hope this is, this could be a map 5 banger.
I predict Houston coming out of the gates hot again, only to fumble again. That's my prediction. I hope I'm wrong. But yeah, I think it's going to be closer. I think both teams are struggling somewhat. I don't see either team blowing out the other one.
Oh, really? I was going to say I'm expecting a Gladiators 3-0.
Oh, really?
Yeah, why not?
They're going to play angry after their last one?
Yeah, I think so. I think the Gladiators are angry.
I think Gladiators are going to go the shoe-jorn again.
Oh, none of that.
Control.
None of that.
No, it's going to happen.
No, Danny, shh.
Let's have fun, guys.
I have complete faith in the LA Gladiators that they wouldn't give us the sojourn again. It would be kind of entertaining, but
maybe you want it.
Maybe you want it. Houston Outlaws a map like that. He was half decent at it. Anyway, that's enough rambling. Going into our very last match of the day here, day 3 of the Summer Showdown. We're once more going to throw it over to your casters. It's going to be Kiwi Lemon and Dayleg.
Dayleg? Is it? Hey, Dayleg, what's up? We got our final match of
Hey, Kiwi Lemon, nice to see you.
I hated that. Don't ever say that again. Gladiators versus the Houston Outlaws, who had a rough start to their season, 0-1 each. I can't wait to. Both teams had some things cooked up in their first match, and you think Danny is crazy. You're like, oh, who's that orange guy in the middle? What is he saying about Shu again? We have some stuff in store for you, but do you agree like they with the desk that the Gladiators can just take this easily?
Maybe, Lemon. Both teams have recently been the victim of tragedy, and looking at this roster, yes, I'm afraid, much to the chagrin of Custa, Shu is back in on the Sojourn, which is going to be an interesting little continuation of the experiment. Do you have any insight into why this might happen, Lemon?
Yep. I talked to my boy Hunter about this. I was like, why? The world is wondering. You have Patapan, you have Ons, why Shu?
Is that Jake?
And, oh my, is that Jake Overwatch on Ryan's forehead? Is he channeling some coaching? I don't know what's going on. But anyway, TLDR, Hunter said that, quote, they're playing Shu on Sojourn for fun. Obviously not wanting to reveal the real reason, but if you want my honest opinion, I think they're experimenting with different Sojourn players, clearly not satisfied and thinking that Ons and Patapan have an S+ performance so far.
Yeah, we're all out here having some fun, playing some Overwatch. Ryder doing his best Jake cosplay, but will it be Jake Despair today, or a very happy coach for the Houston Outlaws? Speaking of which, let's talk about their starting lineup. On the other side, we've of course got Houston, who recently have been slain by the New York Excelsior, one of our least effective teams this season, but looking pretty good in this meta. And today, we have Dante starting off on the main tank, presumably on Junker Queen, instead of Doge, their new acquisition who started in their match against NYXL.
I was just sorry, I was laughing because Reiner off screen is just continuously showing the card. By the way, it's an Upper Deck Esports card, so so that's he didn't want to dip into the printer ink for Jake's picture. But anyway, going back to Houston situation. So it's the Houston situation. I've been taught the knowledge of the word Houstonable. So now the question is who is going to be their Junker Queen specialist? So now that Doomfist got nerfed into the ground and his slows are removed, there's not going to be a point to playing Doomfist for a very long time. So what does Dante play if not the Doomfist? I think he's going to become the new Junker Queen. But then what does that leave to Doge and Piggy? Is Doge going to want to develop into a main tank? Is he going to ever come in for Junker Queen ever again? You lose your first match and now you're gone. I just don't know what's going on with Houston.
There was a weird tweet from Dante yesterday saying that 70% of the team didn't know that Junker Queen's axe healed her. I'm hoping that didn't include the tank players, but there may have been a critical bit of misunderstanding about what allows Junker Queen to stay alive for so long, unless Dante was, of course, doing a little bit of trolling, as he may be known to do. Merit and Pelican, though. This is a really good meta for them. Statistically, Merit is one of our greatest Sojourns in the league, and of course, Sojourn is preferred by a bunch of teams. Some think that the Ashe is a little bit better, but often it just depends on the playstyle, and Pelican has been able to consistently pop off on the Genji. So I've got a lot of faith in the Houston Outlaws DPS line. However, I think that Lastro, even though he was at the top of Noah's Briggs that are currently existing list, gets a little bit aggressive on the Brigator, and that can be punished by better teams, I think.
Like, Houston started off their series so strong, and then they just got out-adapted. They got reverse swept by the New York Excelsior of all teams. So if I'm in the coaching staff, Jake, Overwatch, whoever it is back there, I'm in panic mode because you are only playing 6 matches to qualify them for the Summer Showdown. None of your previous results matter for this tournament in particular. So to take an L against New York is red alert. The back room on fire. You have to now try to win maybe against a top team like the Gladiators to kind of make up for that, or I don't know, we could see Houston at the bottom of the standings.
Yeah, you could end up with a pretty perilous seed if you start dropping games that you're not supposed to. Admittedly, with what we just saw from a Washington Justice, I think they showed quite a rapid turnaround in terms of gameplay style, even though they were pretty effective against the San Francisco Shock. So it's definitely viable for the Houston Outlaws to try the same as well. I wonder if Houston Outlaws are going to take the main adaptation that teams seem to have done between the first few days, which is swapping from focusing on the enemy Brig to trying to focus down the enemy Junker Queen in the first fight instead, because you can try and use the knife, which is an easier hit on the larger hitbox, to push her into something like a disruptor field and punish any early shout usage.
Well, first, you have an initial Symmetra teleporter. Both teams have equal positioning. Gladiators more opting towards the point, but maybe Shu was left. He was actually playing towards the just initial main door, thinking Outlaws were going to chase Gladiators to the objective, but Outlaws noticed the straggler, executed, and now they get to hunt for more. So really good awareness from the Outlaws in that first fight.
Yeah, Shu right there actually was late coming to the fight because he was the one who played for Symmetra, teleport everyone forward, had to stay in the spawn and then swap back to the Sojourn. And that also meant that he'd used the slide to go forward as well, and with easy pickings for Houston Outlaws when they identified that straggler. What is Pelican doing? What is he cooking?
I guess he thought he could dash Kevster, and just little micro things like that give Kevster the kill, and as soon as one duck falls, I mean the rest do as well. So Houston only had that only had the point for like a blink of an eye. It's flipped at 23.
Okay, early ego duel for Pelican gets punished. We'll have to see if this becomes a motif in the particular matchup here. And of course, Shu's now going to be able to actually take part in fights without being taken out early. Houston Outlaws going for a rotation through high ground here is really good, as they can essentially just force Gladiators off of this by threat rather than by force.
Oh, Dante may be isolated by Kevsters going for the duel, and still got to be careful about that, but I think Dante would have taken that duel if he had left with them, because the speed advantage that Gladiators have, Houston don't want to take a fight that they're just going to lose 4-on-5. Deflect gets Merritt to half health. Not something that Kevster can dash and get the execute on, at least something he wants to commit to yet, as Houston take the road to the right, and the rally starts from the defense of Gladiators, who coalesce into the Outlaws as soon as they present themselves in the middle of the map, as the Outlaws try to run, but they can't hide. Lep is found. No speed for Outlaws, so they're just trapped here.
I love that we saw Gladiators try and push Outlaws back into this small room to make sure that the outside interference that could be had from Merritt on an off angle was fully mitigated. And you can see right now there's just a little bit of a blockade from Los Angeles Gladiators, making sure that any rotation Houston Outlaws try to indulge in is going to be catching quite a bit of poke, especially from Funny Astro, who's only a couple of percentage points away from the barrier.
A 4-man rampage from Dante. Gladiators already are noping out of that. They go back to the point. Reiner a little bit too slow, though, and Outlaws, they use the rally just to make sure if Kevster's flank is present, which it was, they were going to Houston were going to accidentally lose someone. So 2 ults, fight win, Outlaws back on the point.
A clean fight from Houston Outlaws, but also a fairly clean loss from the LA Gladiators. Lemon didn't use too much more. The rally was used in the previous fight, so now Gladiators have their own rampage engagements which can be handled here. The question is, will Pelican get caught out early again? He's playing a lot more reserved.
Ooh, rampage. I thought Reiner was going to go for it, but the overclock. I like that he gets the stand still, but he turns and burns on Pelican. Disgusting. And Houston are falling like flies. They don't have Lastro either. They either have to fight or die. There was no running out of that, especially with Shu's overclock. So Houston will drop this, and Gladiators will get the flip at 80-something%. It's last fight for Gladiators.
The thing is, for many other teams, when Pelican makes that dash, there's no time for Shu to turn around and just pummel him with the railgun, because the rest of the team would be crashing into the front of him, but Pelican appears to be operating alone. Big rampage.
The rampage towards Spot, no shot, and then Houston just decide to ignore him and kill everyone behind Reiner. Now, success rate, not so great. The Houston, after just going past Reiner, only killed 1, and that was Shu, and then Dante gets punished. He's taking too much damage, so we'll see if the blade will give Houston an edge, quite literally, as Pelican jumps through the window. He has skewed at critical health, but a well-timed shield bash gets skewed closer to Mega and will allow him to re-engage into this fight, but the point flip has already happened.
Yeah, Reiner has returned though, and Houston Outlaws running low on resources. It's going to be all about Lastro staying alive with this rally long enough to build up that overhealth for what should be a final fight here. No one from Gladiators is going to have a clutch factor with an ultimate. It's all about the raw mechanics. This is where you look to a player like Kevster to finish things.
Oh, Merritt dips Shu yet again, and just Gladiators can't seem to get the trade when these things happen. This is a pretty big Sojourn gap already. Feels like Shu has been first blooded a couple of fights, and Houston winning 199 first round.
Exactly right, Lemon. Shu has been first blooded quite a few times, including by things like the Disruptor shot, and that's such an integral part of the Sojourn's kit in this particular meta because it's so useful for being able to force either an amped up speed boost or a commanding shout out of a Junker Queen to escape the slow effect as well as the damage that it does bring forth. Gladiators, I'd love to see the Junkrat. I don't think it's going to be real. We have seen a little bit in Korean contenders, especially on this particular map, the control center of Lijiang Tower, because the burst damage is very difficult to deal with for the healers that Houston Outlaws have, or rather any team has, in the Brigitte and the Lucio. And indeed, it seems to be real. Okay, what? Burst is back on the menu, boys. This is very dangerous for Lastro. He's got a huge hitbox.
Now I know why Ryder had the Jake card on his forehead. They really are just doing some osmosis of some ideas, and what are they cooking? Gladiators, though, they chase the Outlaws backline, who counter-rotate behind their backline, and who is the first to fall? It's Dante, who's been chased around. So you have some server control for the Gladiators, and Houston. They're just out in the open, and they're eating grenades, whether they stand on the point or whether they escape. And Merritt playing on coast side, distant from the danger, wasn't able to get any initial picks for Houston. So point first for Glads.
I might be wrong, but I think that Funny Astro just boots Alastro into Kevster's trap to get the finish. Remember that the trap now does 100 damage, which is a lot of burst, especially when that kind of damage needs to be answered with a repair pack. And on the Brigitte, of course, they can't repair pack themselves. Now you're attacking into the Junkrat, which is exactly what he wants. Move into my territory and suffer my spam.
Oh, they're gonna suffer Outlaws just in the middle of that disruptor shot placed by Shu. Once that's gone, they start to move up, trying to figure out if they can use the pillar's protection. Do they want to take server, especially from the Junkrat? But Mary gets a shot, headshot into Funny Astro, and there's no speed to help Gladiators escape, so they're gonna lose everybody in this fight, except maybe Kevster, who took the long way around, but he's still actually gonna get hunted down by Outlaws.
So I've talked a lot about what makes the Junkrat good, but what makes the Junkrat worse is that his finishing potential is much weaker than Genji. If you get someone low, it's much harder to try and find the overall killing blow as a very immobile Junkrat, unless you're willing to get in there with a mine and try and just dunk on top of them. There's a Riptire available. This can't be easily answered unless Lep gets that barrier.
Okay, barrier or shout, something to give them some overhealth against the tire, and Outlaws just ran away and shot it down. And look at this quick re-engage, especially punishing Funny Astro. Gladiators, are they gonna stand here? They have the point, so they can die on it if they want to extend the lead that they have, but they will be gifting ult charge to Houston Outlaws, who use both of their support ultimates, the barrier and the rally against this. Houston were just not confident against kind of the high burst damage that Kevster has on the Junkrat. And Houston did get the flip, but they didn't fully kill Gladiators off.
Ryan did a really good job of baiting Dante into the trap as well by just disengaging in a very straight line that's incredibly tempting for a pro player to go after. Now Shu building up towards the overclock.
Trying to kill Pelican. Pelican just is going after supports and maybe not Shu. Ooh, that blade was just not a problem. Merritt used his overclock, nothing happened there either. Dante's half health, has to head for the doors, and Pelican can't escape in time, so Gladiators are gonna see what other staggers they can get, and every second matters because it's 65 plus for Gladiators.
All right, here's the percentage play question. Can Kevster trap Dante's Rampage? Could they stop it midway through the pathing with a well-placed trap if there was a good enough bait from the Los Angeles Gladiators? Remember, Houston have likely not played against this comp before.
You're thinking they're way too big brain. Okay, they have Jake taped on their forehead. They're not. You can't just add a brain. Like Houston. At least they have the brains. They use their ultimates. They won this fight, and they managed to get the point back. This is going to be another 99-99 round.
Yeah, not a huge amount of value there from Shu's overclock as well. Lastro is going to be able to really dictate the pace of this next fight using the rally, meaning that Dante can be a lot more confident moving into Reiner. However, when it comes to the counter Rampage here, things are going to get very worrying, and that's why Kevster's moved over to a Genji to get better finishes on anti and low players.
It's just such a high mobility DPS, and that's a mobile Reiner. He pierces through 4 people, including the supports with a Rampage. The rally from Lastro is just barely keeping the Outlaws up, as they have to move cautiously forward to keep the point in their possession, because the Gladiators were so close to the flip, and as the fight breaks down, Lastro's dangerously low, but there's no support for the Gladiators. Are the Houston Outlaws gonna take the first map against the Gladiators? The only person there to touch is Kevster. He's been booped off. Overtime has started, but Funny Astro is just getting back, and Pelican's on the case, and the Houston Outlaws have done it. They've taken map number 1.
That was all about killing the rally from Skewed Lemon, and this just gives me a little bit of time to talk about what happens with the Los Angeles Gladiators support line. We thought that it would be the best for Gladiators because Skewed is such a good break and Funny Astro is such a good Lucia, but the thing is, you don't play break in this meta like you're used to. You have to play break to kite here rather than to brawl. If you die as Brigitte, your team is missing all of its burst healing from those repair packs, and Skewed is playing break as he was always lauded for, able to make a good amount of space, play it almost like an off tank, and get a good amount of real damage and high inspire output from just being in the midst of everything. But that's punished heavily by the Houston Outlaws.
Well, Glads are now 0-2 on their first maps, and both first matches they've played on this shoe shenanigans and now the Junkrat shenanigans. Who knows what's going on in the backers of the Gladiators, but Houston are up, and that's all that matters. We'll see you guys after the break.